Stop what you're doing and listen carefully. Right now, as you watch this, there are people in your life actively hunting you. They've already marked you as prey. They're not thinking about it consciously. They don't wake up planning to destroy you, but their unconscious minds have identified you as a perfect target, and they're already feeding off your life force. You've probably noticed the pattern by now. The same types of people keep appearing in your life. Energy vampires who leave you exhausted. Manipulators who twist reality until you question your own sanity. Emotional parasites who drain everything from you while giving nothing back. And somehow, you keep letting them in. Here's the truth that's going to make you uncomfortable. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's not that you're just too trusting. You've been programmed to be perfect prey, and these predators can smell it on you from across a room. Carl Jung spent decades studying this phenomenon, and what he discovered will fundamentally change how you see every relationship in your life. He identified 6 specific psychological predator types who hunt for people exactly like you. People who've been conditioned to confuse exploitation with love, who've been trained to see boundaries as selfishness, who've been programmed to believe that giving until you're empty is what makes you a good person. But here's what Jung really understood. Your empathy isn't a weakness that needs to be protected. It's a power source that needs to be guarded. And right now, people are plugged into it without your permission, draining you dry while you apologize for not having more to give. Think about it right now. Who in your life consistently drains your energy but somehow makes it your fault? Who creates constant drama that you always end up fixing? Who makes you feel crazy for noticing their patterns? That feeling in your gut right now, that uncomfortable recognition, that's not paranoia. That's your unconscious mind finally being allowed to speak. The most dangerous lie society ever programmed into you is this. Give everyone the benefit of the doubt. See the good in people. Don't be judgmental. This conditioning has turned you into a walking buffet for psychological predators who've evolved specifically to exploit people who've been taught to ignore danger signals. But what if you could see through their masks within minutes instead of months? What if you could finally stop being everyone's emotional dumping ground and start commanding the respect you've always deserved? What if you could identify these parasites before they sink their claws into your soul? The question is, are you ready to face the uncomfortable truth about why you keep attracting the same toxic people? Or will you continue pretending that your repeated betrayals are just unfortunate circumstances beyond your control? Here's the brutal reality nobody wants to admit. You're not attracting toxic people by accident. You're advertising yourself as available prey through behaviors you genuinely believe make you a good person. Right now, as you watch this, there are people in your life who've already cataloged every single one of your weaknesses. They know exactly which buttons to push to flood you with guilt. They've mapped out your people-pleasing triggers with scientific precision. They've studied your patterns and weaponized your own values against you. Society didn't just teach you to be kind. It systematically dismantled your psychological immune system while calling it virtue. Every time someone told you don't be judgmental, they were stripping away your natural predator detection system. Every time you heard, give everyone a chance, they were teaching you to ignore danger signals that kept your ancestors alive. Every time someone praised you for seeing the good in people, they were celebrating your blindness to psychological threats. But Jung understood something your parents, teachers, and society deliberately kept hidden from you. This unconditional niceness isn't virtue. It's trained helplessness. You've been conditioned to suppress every instinct that would protect you from manipulation, and now you're paying the price. Think about this right now and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you felt deeply uncomfortable around someone but talked yourself out of that feeling? When did you last excuse someone's toxic behavior because calling it out would make you seem mean? How many times just this week have you prioritized someone else's comfort over your own safety? Here's what's actually happening inside your mind, and this is going to sting. You've been infected with malicious psychological software that overrides your survival instincts. When someone makes you uneasy, Instead of trusting that ancient wisdom, you run a program that says, "I'm being too judgmental." When someone's story has glaring inconsistencies, instead of investigating, you activate another program. Give them the benefit of the doubt. When someone violates your boundaries, instead of enforcing consequences, you run the ultimate override. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. These aren't your organic thoughts. They're installed responses designed to keep you compliant, available, and exploitable. Jung called this our persona, the socially acceptable mask we present to the world. But your persona of endless forgiveness and infinite understanding has become a glowing neon sign that screams, "Victim available here," to every psychological predator within a 5-mile radius. The very qualities that should make you powerful, your empathy, your compassion, your genuine desire to help others, have been weaponized by people who view your kindness as profound stupidity. And here's the most chilling part. These manipulators don't just randomly stumble upon you. They have radar for people like you. They can identify someone with weak boundaries in under 5 minutes of conversation. They know how to spot people who apologize for other people's bad behavior. They're actively hunting for individuals who will sacrifice their own well-being to avoid conflict. You think you're being loving and understanding. They see you as a renewable resource to be harvested indefinitely. Look around your life right now with brutal honesty. How many relationships do you have where you consistently give 80% and receive maybe 20%? How many people only contact you when they need something from you? How many conversations leave you feeling completely drained instead of energized? How many people in your circle create chaos that you somehow feel obligated to clean up? That's not friendship. That's not love. That's not family obligation. That's psychological farming. And you're the crop being harvested season after season. The most terrifying realization is this. While you've been busy trying to be a good person, proving your worth through service, they've been busy studying you like a predator studies prey. They know your schedule, your vulnerabilities, your triggers, your guilt buttons. They know exactly how long to wait between taking from you so you don't notice the pattern. They know precisely how much appreciation to show to keep you providing. You're not in relationships. You're in psychological harvest agreements where you're the only one being farmed. But here's what we're going to explore in the next section. How these 6 specific predator types operate at an unconscious level, and why Jung's framework gives you the power to see through their masks before they can sink their claws any deeper into your psychological flesh. If this is resonating with you, if you're exhausted from being farmed by people who see your heart as weakness, subscribe to this channel, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you see every person who's ever needed your help. Now we get to the terrifying core of Jung's discovery and why you've been living in psychological hell without even recognizing it. Your unconscious mind is screaming warnings about people every single day. Right now, as you think about certain individuals in your life, your body is sending you urgent signals. That knot that forms in your stomach when you see their name on your phone. That sudden wave of fatigue when you know you have to see them. That inexplicable dread that washes over you when they walk into a room. But here's the sick part. Your conscious mind has been trained to silence these alarms immediately. Every time you feel that instant discomfort around someone but force yourself to be polite anyway, you're committing psychological self-harm. Every time your energy plummets in someone's presence but you tell yourself you're just being negative, you're betraying your own survival instincts. Every time you override your gut feeling about someone, you're choosing social acceptance over self-preservation. Jung discovered something that will make your blood run cold. There are people who literally cannot survive without feeding off your psychological energy. They're not consciously choosing to be manipulative. They're evolutionary parasites who've developed sophisticated unconscious strategies to ensure you keep providing for their emotional needs without ever receiving anything in return. Think about that person who always has a crisis right when things are finally going well for you. That's not coincidence. That's their unconscious mind detecting that you have surplus energy available and automatically creating situations that will redirect it toward them. They don't plan this consciously. They don't wake up thinking, "I'm going to manipulate them today." Their nervous system does it automatically, like a predator's instinct to hunt when it senses prey. You know that feeling when someone walks into a room and suddenly the air feels thick and heavy? That's not your imagination. That's your ancient survival system detecting a psychological threat. Your ancestors who ignored these signals didn't survive long enough to reproduce. But you've been taught to override millions of years of evolved protection mechanisms because someone might think you're being judgmental or unkind. Here's what's happening in your relationships right now that you can't see because you've been trained not to look. These psychological parasites have trained you exactly like a lab rat in an experiment. They know precisely which behaviors will trigger your guilt. They understand exactly how to activate your need to help. They've mapped your fear of being seen as selfish, and they push those buttons unconsciously, automatically, every single day. That friend who only calls when they need something but somehow makes you feel guilty for noticing. Their unconscious mind has mapped your entire psychological terrain and knows precisely how to access your resources while making you feel privileged to provide them. That family member who creates endless drama that you always end up managing. They've unconsciously engineered a system where you provide emotional labor on demand while they remain perpetually unavailable for your needs. That colleague who dumps their problems on you daily but somehow vanishes when you need support. They've unconsciously identified you as someone who won't enforce consequences for one-sided relationships. And here's the most disturbing part that's going to make you angry at yourself. You've been conditioned to feel proud of this exploitation. When someone drains your energy, leaves you emotionally exhausted, and takes without ever giving, you tell yourself you're being supportive, understanding, and loving. They've convinced you that being their emotional slave is a virtue. They've programmed you to interpret exhaustion as selflessness. Jung understood that every human interaction is fundamentally an energy transaction. Healthy people create mutual exchanges. They give energy. They receive energy. Everyone leaves enriched by the interaction, but these 6 parasitic types he identified have evolved to ensure the energy only flows one direction, toward them. Always toward them. Right now, audit your relationships with brutal, unflinching honesty. How many people in your life consistently take significantly more than they give? How many conversations leave you feeling drained and depleted instead of energized and inspired? How many people only show up when they need something from you? How many times just this week have you felt completely exhausted after helping someone who has never once helped you back? That exhaustion isn't selflessness. That's being systematically harvested. But here's Jung's most crucial and terrifying insight, the one that will either liberate you or keep you trapped forever. You can't see these patterns clearly because they activate your psychological shadow, the parts of yourself you've been taught to deny, suppress, and reject. These parasites don't just drain your energy, they force you to confront the ugly truth about how you've been programmed to participate in your own exploitation. The person who makes you feel guilty for having boundaries is showing you how you've been programmed to see self-protection as selfishness. The person who expects you to fix their problems is revealing how you've been conditioned to believe other people's emotional states are your responsibility. The person who takes your kindness for granted is exposing how you've been taught to give away your power in exchange for the possibility of love. They're not just energy vampires feeding off you, they're mirrors reflecting your deepest psychological programming back at you. And what they're showing you is this: you've been systematically trained to be the perfect victim. Are you ready to look directly into the faces of those who have been harvesting your life force while you thank them for the privilege? Because Jung's greatest revelation about why you've been powerless to stop them is about to shatter everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. Here's Jung's most devastating insight, the one that will either liberate you completely or terrify you into staying trapped forever. Every single manipulation only works because you're secretly addicted to being needed. The moment you stop feeding the psychological parasites in your life, they don't just get upset. They reveal their true nature. And what you'll discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about the people you've loved, supported, and sacrificed for. Jung called this withdrawing your projections. But here's what he really meant in practical terms. Stop being emotionally available to people who are psychologically unavailable to you. Stop giving your energy to people who wouldn't cross the street to help you. Stop rescuing people who create the same problems over and over again. But here's the brutal truth that will make your stomach drop. This feels like you're dying inside because your entire identity has been built around being useful to people who don't actually care about you. You've been getting high off being needed by people who see you as nothing more than a convenience store for emotional labor. Think about this right now and be devastatingly honest with yourself. How much of your self-worth comes from being the person others turn to in crisis? How much of your identity is wrapped up in being helpful, supportive, understanding, always available? How often do you feel most valuable when you're solving someone else's problems while your own life falls apart? That's not love. That's not service. That's not compassion. That's addiction. You're addicted to being needed because it's the only time you feel important, valuable, worthy of taking up space. And the people exploiting you know this better than you know it yourself. When you implement Jung's approach and start withdrawing your energy, here's exactly what happens and why it's so psychologically terrifying. The psychological parasites in your life will immediately show you who they really are. They'll accuse you of being selfish, cold, heartless, judgmental, all the things you've been conditioned to fear being labeled as. They'll create manufactured emergencies specifically designed to trigger your guilt and reactivate your old patterns. They'll suddenly have crises that can only be solved by your immediate attention and resources. This is Jung's concept of psychological crisis. When you stop feeding someone's dysfunction, they don't just get upset. They become desperate. Like addicts whose supply has been abruptly cut off, they'll do absolutely anything to get you back to your old patterns of endless availability and service. They'll cry, they'll manipulate, they'll threaten, they'll guilt-trip you with surgical precision, they'll remind you of everything you've ever done for them as if your past service means you're obligated to continue forever. And finally, when none of that works anymore, when they realize you're actually serious about protecting yourself, they'll reveal their true feelings about you, and that's when you'll realize the most devastating truth of your entire life. They never actually loved you. They loved what you did for them. They never actually cared about you as a person. They cared about your usefulness, your function, your availability. They never actually saw you as a human being with your own needs. They saw you as a resource, a service provider, an emotional ATM machine. Are you ready to discover that some of your closest relationships are actually just elaborate consumption agreements? Are you prepared to learn that people you've loved for years, people you've sacrificed for, people you've prioritized over yourself, see you as nothing more than an emotional service provider? Can you handle finding out that your best friends only call when they need something? That your family only values you for what you do, not who you are. That your colleagues only include you when you're useful. Because Jung's approach to psychological freedom requires you to face the most painful truth imaginable. Most people in your life don't actually like you. They like what you do for them. And the moment you stop doing those things, they disappear. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. And this is going to hurt. You've been so desperate to be loved that you've accepted being used as a substitute. You've been so hungry for genuine connection that you've mistaken exploitation for friendship. You've been so terrified of being alone that you've surrounded yourself with people who only value your productivity, never your presence. The 6 psychological parasite types Jung warned us about can only survive by convincing you that being used is being loved, that being drained is being helpful, that being exploited is being appreciated. But the moment you flip this script, the moment you make your psychological well-being absolutely non-negotiable, everything changes instantly. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't need their approval. They can't drain energy from someone who guards it like the precious, finite resource it is. They can't create drama with someone who refuses to be the star in their psychological theater. But here's the question that will determine your entire future. Are you ready to be genuinely respected by fewer people? Or do you want to continue being used by everyone while being valued by no one? Are you prepared to lose relationships that were never real in the first place? Or will you keep pretending that being someone's emotional dumping ground is the same thing as love? The parasites are counting on you choosing the familiar pain of exploitation over the unknown terror of genuine self-respect. What are you going to choose? First comes the silence, and it will feel like psychological death. When you stop automatically responding to every manufactured crisis, when you stop explaining yourself to people who've never explained themselves to you, when you stop making yourself available to parasites who've been feeding off your availability, the world around you doesn't just feel different, it feels apocalyptic. Jung called this the individuation process, becoming who you truly are rather than who others have programmed you to be. And here's what he discovered that will terrify you. This process initially feels like you're killing the good person everyone loved. But here's the truth that will set you free. That good person was never you. It was a psychological slave designed to serve everyone except yourself. The first people to disappear from your life will absolutely shock you. That friend who always had emergencies that only you could solve, gone the moment you stopped being available 24/7. That family member who made you responsible for managing their emotional state, they'll accuse you of being heartless and selfish the second you stop managing their feelings. That co-worker who dumped their problems on you every single day, they'll suddenly treat you like you don't exist. And this is when you'll face the most devastating realization of your entire life. These people never actually cared about you. They cared about your function. You weren't their friend. You were their emotional service provider. You weren't their beloved family member. You were their psychological janitor. You weren't their valued colleague. You were their unpaid therapist. But here's Jung's promise, and why this temporary psychological death leads to permanent psychological freedom. What emerges from this purification process is something the parasites in your life have never seen before. Someone who cannot be manipulated, controlled, guilt-tripped, or exploited. You'll lose the people who only valued your emotional labor, but you'll discover they were never actually people in your life. They were just users with access. You'll lose the validation from those who appreciated your weakness, but you'll realize their approval was conditional on your continued exploitation. You'll lose the familiar patterns of exhaustion and depletion, but you'll gain something infinitely more valuable, genuine self-respect. And here's where the magic happens, where everything shifts. You start attracting completely different human beings. Instead of psychological parasites who drain your energy, you begin connecting with people who actually energize you. Instead of manipulators who exploit your empathy, you meet individuals who match your emotional investment. Instead of takers who see your kindness as stupidity, you attract givers who recognize your discernment as wisdom. The people who remain in your life after this transformation aren't there because they need to harvest something from you. They're there because they genuinely enjoy who you are when you're not performing emotional labor for their benefit. They contribute to your well-being as much as you contribute to theirs. They respect your boundaries because they have their own healthy boundaries. They give as much as they receive because they understand relationships are mutual exchanges, not one-way extraction systems. Jung understood something that will change how you see every relationship. Authentic connection can only exist between two people who have learned to protect their own psychological well-being. Everything else is just sophisticated forms of mutual exploitation disguised as love, friendship, or family obligation. Your new strength will be completely misunderstood by the psychological parasites you've cut off, and their reactions will confirm everything. The people you used to rescue will call you selfish, which is their code for no longer exploitable. The drama creators will say you've become cold, which means you're no longer emotionally available for our manufactured crises. The energy vampires will accuse you of changing for the worse, which translates to you're no longer a reliable food source. But Jung knew something they don't, something crucial. Their opinion of your boundaries is completely irrelevant to your psychological health. In fact, their anger at your boundaries is proof that your boundaries are working. You'll walk into rooms differently now, not seeking approval, not scanning for who needs rescuing, not automatically making yourself smaller to accommodate other people's dysfunction. You'll speak with quiet authority that comes from knowing your worth isn't dependent on your usefulness to psychological parasites. You'll trust your instincts about people rather than overriding them with guilt and social conditioning. You'll recognize manipulation within seconds instead of months. And perhaps most importantly, you'll finally understand the profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is being surrounded by people who see you as a resource to be exploited. Solitude is being comfortable enough with yourself that you don't need validation from people who've never valued your actual humanity. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming authentic requires executing the psychological slave that others have programmed you to be. It requires choosing self-respect over social acceptance. It requires valuing your own peace over other people's comfort. It requires understanding that you are not responsible for managing other people's emotional states, fixing their problems, or making yourself small so they can feel big. The parasites will rage against your transformation. Let them. Their anger is not your problem to solve. Their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage. Their loss of access to you is not your guilt to carry. You are not here to be harvested. You are here to live fully, authentically, and powerfully. If this resonated with you, if you're ready to stop being psychological prey and start commanding genuine respect, subscribe to this channel for more content that transforms your understanding of human psychology and personal power. Your life is waiting. Stop letting parasites consume it.